Hello everybody, I'm Vaughn. Welcome back to another episode of Bake Time. I'm very excited because the fog is lifting, the seasonal depression is dissipating, the flowers are blooming, and I'm just ready to bake up some happy. So today for Bake Time, I'm gonna be making carrot cake butter mochi. What is butter mochi? It is this dessert that's just chewy and dense and sticky and springy, but it's not heavy. The glutinous rice flour makes it very chewy, which I really, really love. I made more of like a cream cheese style glaze. It's got lemon juice to kind of cut it. It's really, really good on top of it. Butter mochi is kind of a descendant of a Filipino bibingka, which is in this category of like snacking cakes. And it is something that's like pretty ubiquitous for parties, celebrations, get-togethers in Hawaii. There are a lot of really great Hawaiian chefs and authors who have written about butter mochi. We have a couple recipes on New York Times Cooking that I was able to go off of. And I just really wanted to do right by this treat that is so integral to a specific culture. So I thought about the work of Chef Sheldon Simeon, who is a Hawaiian chef, and he has really riffed on butter mochi, it seems. And so I chatted with him.
I'm excited to talk about butter mochi because it's definitely a heated debate in people's recipe books in Hawaii.
And it was really great. He had a lot of amazing things to say about how not only this thing that is very like ever present in Hawaiian culture, but has also evolved from this beautiful melting pot of different cultures that exist in Hawaii.
It is one of the quintessential like desserts at a Hawaii party, at a potluck. It's a mashup between cultures. I see Filipino aunts making these glutinous rice desserts, sitting around the table and wrapping them in banana leaves. We still celebrate in Hawaii the pounding of mochi during the New Year's. I don't want butter mochi to be just a trend. I think it's just like it's a dessert that is deserving on the family table or even at the highest of culinary arts.
In the Venn diagram of carrot cake and butter mochi, where does this exist in the middle? Like how much of its DNA is carrot cake and how much of its DNA is butter mochi? To me, it was more important to like have the flavors of carrot cake, but still be butter mochi as like a treat. I had a ton of fun working on this recipe and I'm very excited to show it to all of you. So let's get going. All right, the moment of truth. Peeling and grating. So that's 2 cups of carrots. Peel and grate some ginger. Okay. Whew. I'm gonna toast up some coconut, just toasty enough to where it kind of releases its oils a little bit and starts to get some better flavor. So I just have this over like a medium-low heat, and I'm gonna stir constantly because I just wanna make sure that no one shred of coconut is actually like making contact with the bottom of the pan longer than any other one. This is a cup of coconut. Half of it's gonna actually go in the batter, and then the other half we're gonna reserve for the topping. Once I started to see most of it get really nice and like lightly golden brown, that's when I took it off because I didn't want it to burn. Now we're meased. I'm going to butter and line my pan, lay my parchment down here, and just like I always do, get all of the air bubbles out. Greased up like a pig at the county fair. Now I'm gonna brown the butter. I tested this recipe without the brown butter, and it was good. It was just like lacking a little bit of depth. I think this brings that nice little nutty toastiness to the actual butter mochi itself. It's like very vigorously bubbling right now. All that water is trying to escape. And then what you're left with is basically the fat or like the kind of clarified butter and the milk solids, and then that fat is gonna toast the milk solids. My first tests kind of scared me a little bit with how wet they were. I brought it over to my friend's house. Test 1's raw. Okay, troubleshooting. This is just the first test. I underestimated how underbaked it would be. The second test. I think it looks good. Clean. After that, I like really got my wits about me. This looks already so much better. I am trying to mitigate the amount of moisture that I actually put into this. So I'm not adding any moisture back into the butter. Science. We're gonna mix all of our wet ingredients and our dry ingredients together separately. The wet goes into the dry, bing, bang, boom, we bake. So into the brown butter, I'm gonna add some full fat coconut milk. Very important that it's full fat. 2 eggs, vanilla, add my ginger, and then I'm just gonna whisk it, making sure that I break up those yolks and that everything is very, very evenly mixed together, very homogeneous. You want it to look like a custard. That's basically what it is. It's like a coconut milk custard. This is my glutinous rice flour, mochiko. There's Blue Star mochiko, which is the one that I always see in like my Japanese grocery store or H Mart. I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar in here. Now sugar is a wet ingredient, but here I'm gonna add it with the dry, just so that the sugar kind of gets nicely like broken up as I'm mixing it. A little bit of cinnamon, some ground ginger. I like when recipes have both freshly grated and ground ginger in it because I feel like it just kind of like really reinforces that punchy, spicy vibe. And then this is just a little bit of ground cardamom, some baking powder. It doesn't rise too totally much in the oven, but it does need a bit of baking powder to kind of give it some activation. Some kosher salt, and then I'm gonna mix this together. Going through and really distributing all those spices, the baking powder, the sugar. I like to add the coconut separately, just so sometimes I can make sure that everything else is more evenly distributed. Make a little bit of a divot or a well in the center. Pour my wet ingredients into my dry. You see those like little toasty brown flecks left in there? That is flavor. That's all flavor, baby. Take you to Flavor Town. That's from the brown butter. So sometimes that can sink to the bottom of the wet ingredients, and you wanna make sure that you get all of that in there. So I'm going to give this a nice whisk. It really only takes a second to get it all incorporated, but you wanna make sure that it's really, really smooth. And then right as you start to see some of those last little pockets of dry ingredients start to dissipate, you're almost there, but I do wanna make sure that it's really well mixed. My carrots. I love golden raisins. I think golden raisins are fantastic because they just have like a little bit more punch to them, in my opinion. This just goes into our prepared 9x13. So it's in the corners and it looks gorgeous. Into the oven we go. We need a towel that says Mochi. So this is a standard cream cheese glaze, one that you might find on like a cinnamon roll recipe, for example. I brought it into the office and everybody was like, basically this is a vessel for this frosting. Very excited to report that people liked it. I always like to sift powdered sugar whenever I'm making frosting, just to kind of like lump control. Just take this whisk and kind of like work the powdered sugar in there. It's gonna take a minute to kind of get it going, but then once you start to actually get the cream cheese and the powdered sugar like workable, it will thin out pretty easily. A little bit of salt. I'm gonna add probably 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, but I'm gonna start with just 1. I cheeked it so there's no seeds in there. And then when you use the whisk, you can see that it's already gotten a lot thinner. The more you agitate cream cheese, it actually becomes thinner. I'm kind of like held at a V shape there. I kind of wanted to like drizzle down into itself a little bit more. It's more of a glaze, so I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more lemon juice. Yeah, that's good. I mean, the frosting's done. All we gotta do is frost. Ooh, ah. I'm seeing that it's pulling away from the edges. And the cake tester's clean. So I'm gonna let this cool in the pan for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to flip it out onto a wire rack to cool completely. All right, y'all. We've got this cooled cake here, and it's so sturdy that honestly I can just pick it up and move it to wherever I need it to go. Obviously, be very careful, but it's all about confidence. Basically, all I'm gonna do is spread this all over. Oh man. I'm not gonna be too precious about it. I just really want to make sure that it's even. Sprinkle it with some toasted coconut, and it gets a really generous amount of it on there. Some chopped crystallized ginger, which just adds like an extra bit of chew, and also it just really reinforces that kind of like spiciness that you already get in the cake. Oh my God, this looks so good. So I cut it just into 12 even squares. Since this is a 9x13, it's about 3-inch squares. I think that this is an appropriate size for like a serving of cake, but if you're serving it at a potluck, for example, or big gathering with a lot of people, this would feed easily 20 plus people. Like you could cut each of these into bars. You could cut them into smaller squares. I don't really eat it with a fork usually, but I guess I gotta be ladylike in public and do it. It's like all the things that you love about a carrot cake, which is the flavor, you still get those bits of carrot in there, and all of the textures you love about butter mochi. And I love how coconutty it is. I love that little pop of like spice from the ground ginger, the freshly grated ginger, the crystallized ginger on top. It all works super well together, and it's like really balanced. And then that cream cheese frosting is something else. I'll tell you what, it's really good. I honestly like probably would have added even a little bit more lemon juice to it to give it a bit more tang, but I liked the consistency I was at with this one. You know how like when you're eating marshmallows, you're just like, this is so fun to eat because it's like chewy and sticky, but also like really soft and supple. That's exactly what this is.
It is one of those dishes that just makes you feel good. That's why we live here in Hawaii, man. Trying to make everyone feel good and striving for that aloha spirit at all times.
I cannot wait for people to experience making butter mochi for the first time if they haven't. It is just a really fun and easy and crowd-pleasing dessert. If you make it, share it with me. Baketime at nytimes.com, tag me on Instagram. You'll probably be featured in my newsletter, / you could end up like one of these people who made the March monthly bake, the Guinness chocolate cake, and you'll get your photo immortalized in a YouTube video. Who doesn't want that? Sign up for my newsletter, also called Bake Time, because you will get this recipe for free. All of our monthly bake recipes are free if you subscribe to the newsletter, and you do not have to be a New York Times Cooking subscriber to subscribe to the newsletter. But you should be. For this recipe and a bunch of other great recipes, including other fantastic butter mochi recipes, head to nytcooking.com, download the app, sign up for the newsletter, do all the things. We're a real multimedia experience here. It's warm outside, let's have a party. Let's eat this butter mochi.